Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a word we use constantly, but what does it actually mean? The word is fact. So what makes a fact a fact?
All right, so let's jump right in with something that seems super simple. Fact versus opinion. Easy, right? Well, you'd be surprised. That line gets really blurry really fast. I mean, we all have this gut feeling, right? A fact is just something that's true. But hold on, what about a really strong opinion? Something you believe with all your heart is true. How is that different? See? It gets complicated way quicker than you'd think. Okay, look at these examples. Most of us, without even thinking, would sort these out pretty easily. The sun is a star. Yeah, that's a fact. Genocide is wrong. Well, that feels like a fact, but we'd probably call it an opinion, even though we know it's true. So just saying facts are true doesn't cut it. There's got to be something else going on here. Yeah, the real difference here isn't as simple as true versus false. It's a lot more subtle than that. To really wrap our heads around this, we need to start thinking about reality in, well, different layers. And to help us unpack all this, we're going to borrow a really cool thought experiment from the philosopher John Searle. It's a super simple setup, but trust me, what it reveals about our world is pretty profound. Okay, picture this. You're at a soccer match, and you brought your dog. You're both sitting there watching the exact same thing unfold on the field. You both see people running, a ball flying around. The physical stuff happening is identical for both of you. But what you actually see, what you perceive, totally different. So your dog sees what Searle calls a brute fact. This is just the raw physical reality of what's happening. It's a thing that exists completely on its own, no human interpretation needed. A ball crossed a white line, period. That's all there is to it from a purely physical standpoint. But you see something else entirely. You see an institutional fact. The idea of a goal isn't actually out there on the field with the grass and the ball. It's not made of atoms. It only exists because we, all of us humans, have agreed that it exists. It's a fact born from a shared set of rules.
And this is the light bulb moment, right here. Your dog sees the physics of it all, but you see the meaning. The goal is just as real to you as the ball itself, but its reality is built from a totally different material. It's built from human agreement.
Okay, so what's wild is that Searle actually boiled this whole concept down to a simple formula. And this isn't just for fun. This formula is basically the blueprint for how we build, well, everything. How we build our entire civilization from the ground up.
It looks like this. X counts as Y and C. I know, it looks super basic, but this little formula is insanely powerful. This isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It's the engine that literally runs our social world. It's the recipe we use to take some physical thing and just give it a completely new purpose.
So let's plug our soccer game back into this. X, the brute fact, is the ball crosses the line. That physical action counts as Y, the institutional fact, which is a goal. But, and this is key, only in C, the specific context of the rules of soccer. Take away those rules, and it's just a ball rolling past the line. The meaning vanishes.
And this applies to everything. Think about it. A rectangular piece of paper, that's X, counts as $20, that's Y, but only in the context of our economy, that's C. Two people signing a form, X, counts as a marriage, Y, within the context of our legal system, C. It's like we've uncovered the hidden source code for how society works. Okay, so now that we have this new tool, this way of separating physical reality from human-made reality, how does it help us make sense of all the other kinds of facts that we bump into every day?
Let's take a look at science. A scientific fact is basically an observation about the world that we've checked over and over and over again, and it holds up. You can think of these as the raw data points. They're our best shot at describing that brute physical reality we talked about.
And this quote from Stephen Jay Gould just nails it. Facts aren't some lesser version of a theory. Nope, they're the hard data. They're the puzzle pieces. A theory is the big picture we build to try and explain why all those pieces fit together the way they do. All right, now let's switch gears to the courtroom. A legal fact is a whole different ballgame. In law, something becomes a fact only when it's established through a very specific set of rules, the rules of evidence. It's not necessarily about what actually happened, it's about what you can prove happened within that system. So a legal fact is only considered true inside that courtroom if it's backed up by admissible evidence like testimony or DNA.
It's a perfect real-world example of an institution, the legal system, creating its very own definition of what gets to be called a fact.
So, where does all this leave us? After digging into all this, what's the big takeaway?
Well, the main thing is that the word fact is way more flexible than we thought. It can mean a brute, physical fact, like there's a mountain right there, which is true no matter what we think. But it can also mean an institutional fact, like this dollar has value, which is only true because we all agree it is.
And that's a really powerful tool for thinking. The next time you hear someone drop the F-bomb, fact, you can ask yourself, wait a minute, is this a fact because of the physical world, something I can measure, or is it a fact because of a system of human rules we've all agreed to? And believe me, the answer to that question changes everything.
Which brings us to one last kinda mind-bending thought. If so much of our world, our laws, our money, our countries, is built on these institutional facts, these things that are only real because we agree they are, well, they're powerful for sure, but they're also incredibly fragile because they all depend on us continuing to agree. And that leaves a pretty big question hanging in the air. What happens when we stop?